Today is day 4 of the April 88 7-day retreat. Today we will discuss this question which we've mentioned 2 times in a row now. Which is a complex question of why haven't I changed? People asking. I've done this work for 2 years or 10 years. I've been to 4 retreats now, or 8. Or maybe I can't count how many I've gone to. Why haven't I changed? Or the way it is also put is, I've seen through anger. Why does it come back? Or, as anger comes up, I'm aware of it, but it goes on. Why? I'm aware of it, but nothing changes. It keeps on going. I'm just taking anger as one example. Fear. Substitute any of our emotions, the movement of anger, fear, maybe envy or jealousy. One person put it this way: I feel deeply committed to this work, but I'm not sure I have the strength of character to have a fundamental change. Where shall we start? Where do we start with this question? I haven't laid out a talk. I used to do that. I find it's better to come at it freshly at the moment. What do we mean by changing? What is our idea of changing? Because there's idea involved in that, isn't there? When there's no idea involved, there's just what is. But when thought comes up, reflection about what is and what was, thinking about it, reflecting upon it, on a small scale, one's personal life, or on a large global scale, the way things are going in the world. When thought reflects upon this, thinks about it, then the question comes up, does this have to be like this, go on like the way it has been going on? Can there be a change? Change in myself, change in the way things are in the world. What is this idea of change? What do we want to change into? What do we want to become in place of what we are? When we're saying, I would like to change, I haven't changed, I wish I could change, or I can't change, things haven't changed. What are we talking about? Are you also thinking, looking? Is there the idea of an ideal person? A person who's always aware, who doesn't get angry, doesn't get jealous, envious. A person who is loving, kind, compassionate, intelligent. The conceptualization of this, or maybe vaguely knowing somebody who seems to be like that, and the example of that person, wanting to be like him or her. That's all idea, isn't it? I'm not using idea to degrade this. I'm describing something that goes on in the mind. As we're thinking right now, what do I want to change into? Those of us who are very concerned with change, fundamental change. What are we thinking? We are thinking then, aren't we? Thinking about how we were or are, remembering incidences, behavior, problems, past experiences, all memory right now. That's clear, isn't it? All memory right now as we're thinking about it. We have to bring up the memory of how we are and were. And then, out of the memory of the ideal way of being, how we would like to be, what we would like to become. That memory having been deposited in the memory bank of the brain by what we have heard, read, been taught, been sermonized about, or maybe seen in other people. But it's an idea. A concept that is now lodged in the brain. Is that so? Please, if you feel this is not so, I'm off. Come to meeting and let's discuss it. I'm as fervently interested in all of this as any of you are or may be. Yes, tremendous joy and energy in exploring something together from scratch. 2 people or more than 2 people. It's not that one has to have a lot of energy to store it up to do this, but the energy comes as one is doing it. As one wonders together and looks together and raises new question and pauses and looks. It can be a tremendous communion between 2 or more people in this thing. Not my opinion is this or your opinion is that, but we're looking not from opinion, but we're looking newly. What goes on in the mind right now? What is thought? Where it comes from? What is memory? And what is maybe direct perception, direct awareness? And the wind in the trees, the birds, the sun that pours through the window, that's all part of that inquiry, part of that energy, the beauty of it. Not that's the wind and that's the bird, but what is all of that? The listening without knowing, the looking and listening without having it all down pat from memory, but exploring it freshly. At this moment, I remember another similar statement that goes under the same heading of why haven't I changed, or I would like to change, but it is so hard to change. One person, several persons say, you seem to be asking that we should drop our memory, but it seems so hard or impossible to do that. Yes, it does. You can't do that. How can one, who's going to drop the memory? Who is that separate agent that is going to drop the memory? And that's never what is talked about. We are never saying drop your memory. We may hear it that way because we hear already according to installed programs. That's why it's so difficult to listen correctly, accurately, because the programs are listening and filtering. All we're asking is, can one see directly or be aware immediately of what is memory in the mind? And in that seeing, that this is a memory image of myself, that I'm this or that, in seeing that image as it comes up on the internal mind screen, if it's seen, if one is aware of it, if there is insight, that memory image does not have the controlling power over our perception and behavior as it does if it's not seen. If it goes on automatically, which it does, if it's not seen. And with this awareness that spots images, throws light on image, on memory, with that awareness, these images which get in the way in our unaware times, when there's awareness, they are short-circuited. The energy doesn't go in and light them all up. Make them active, so that they're actively preventing or distorting perception. That's the function and activity of this amazing thing that we call awareness or insight. I say thing, but it's not a thing. I don't know what it is. It's a beauty. It defies definition. Usually we can only say what it is not. So we started out by saying, what do we mean when we say, I haven't changed or I ought to change? We reflect on past behavior, because at the moment of pausing, attending, reflecting, there's just that going on. At that instant, we're not reacting. There's just pausing, looking, listening, reflecting, wondering. And in that reflection and wondering and pausing, the past behavior we're worried about is there as a memory. How angry we were, how self-centered, constantly out for me and my advantage, rivalrous, competitive. You know, when we watch what we see. Usually we see it in others, but it's here, it's in oneself, if there's transparency to look. So, thinking of that and then thinking of an ideal state in which all of that is dropped. Doesn't bother us anymore. Doesn't give us discomfort or guilt or pain. And doesn't cause pain to others. That's what we're also thinking about. And then honestly perusing our ways of being and reacting over the years, bringing those years in connection with the time one may have sat on a mat and crossed one's legs, comes to the conclusion nothing much has changed, or nothing has changed. It's still the same reactiveness, the same automaticness of response, be it angry or whatever. And then why? Why, having done all this, sitting in the pain of it maybe, the time of it, the expense of it, why haven't things changed? Why am I not now, as I'm looking at myself, this ideal person? That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is seeing very honestly how one lives, usually in retrospect, how one has behaved and reacted, feeling remorseful about it, feeling bad about it, how destructive one's anger has been, destructive to others, to oneself. The feeling of separation in it. Not just in the anger, also when there's no anger, just this feeling of isolation, loneliness, reflecting upon it, and wishing it was otherwise, wishing it was different. One may or may not bring up an ideal of how one would like to be. We do that very, very surreptitiously, very quickly. But one may say, I don't know what will become of me, but I realize I don't want to carry on and continue like this. That's clear. I don't want to continue the way it's been going all my life. And maybe as I look at things in the world and look at past history, I don't want this endless continuation of the same isolating, struggling, conflicting, and sorrowful behavior, personally and communally. Can it end? Can it change? That's usually the way it's put. Can there be a change, a radical change? Is one at that point where one realizes the dead-endedness of our way of living? Dead-ended meaning always more of the same. Reaction, counter-reaction, and counter-counter-reaction. Angry when one is heard, flattered when one is praised, and then wanting more of the flattery and wanting to avoid the hurt. Or feeling hurt, and then all that grows out of being hurt. The hurt feelings, the conclusions that one draws about oneself, about being no good, or the others being no good. And the whole automatic movement of planning, consciously or unconsciously, a revenge. Wait till my time comes up to hurt you, so you see how it feels. A time does come up, and then it's the other way around again, then one will get hurt back. And then at one point wondering whether this has to continue, or whether there can be a change, a deep change. And yet, stating, in reflecting, often with resignation, nothing has changed. It keeps on going. This observation that is often brought up and looked at times I do see my anger, I do see desire. I'm aware of it, but it goes on. So what good is this awareness if what is observed, attended to, doesn't change? And what we mentioned earlier, I've been aware of anger and it has gone away, but then it comes back. What has changed if it comes back? I thought if it goes, it's gone, but it's not. Who is one expecting an answer from for all of this? Because this is how we're conditioned. We find a problem and we ask the question and we want an answer. From an authority. Does one see what is involved in that? In expecting an answer from who one thinks or hopes is an authority? It means suspending looking for oneself, or maybe not even starting it, and continue to live out of the answers of someone else. If there is someone giving answers, and there are lots of authorities only too eager to give answers. Can one see how something either doesn't even come into being in oneself or atrophies if one just waits for answers from someone else and somehow or other uses these answers for temporary comfort or stimulation, inspiration? The disservice that is done to us by being given answers. Let's go back to anger arising, and at one point, awareness coming up. At what point does awareness arise? When there's rolling anger. One has been hurt, treated unjustly, been labeled something that is a very sore spot to be labeled that way, maybe according to one's ethnic minority or one's weakness. Been said something to that is not true, unfair, and anger coming up. At what point will there be awareness? We don't know. Usually it's after the anger has abated a little bit. At the moment of anger and in full swing, where is the awareness? Every pore and fiber of the body seem to be permeated by this anger. The whole body participates as a whole in this anger. To be aware of it after it has abated is again being aware of a memory, isn't it? So, we're asking, is it possible to be aware as the hurtful remark is being made? Right at the beginning. Maybe before anything has started, if there's awareness, then a person approaching one already sees the mood this person is in. It's written over our moods are written over our faces and our, what is called body language these days. The tension, aggressiveness expresses itself throughout the body. And if one is not blinded by any fears or being involved, absorbed in our own thoughts, the mind is open, attentive, aware, whatever word one wishes to use, then it's quite clear what is coming toward one. Someone in stress or under frustration, angry, full of feeling of revenge. All of this is palpable if the mind is not preoccupied with something else, for instance, oneself. Then if the hurtful remark comes out, why should one get hurt? Is one identified with an image about oneself? One is if there's not attention. We all are. If we're not attentive, we're automatically identified with some image of ourselves. Or many. I don't know how many there are. I've never counted them. One for every occasion. And one for every new occasion. This is how the brain is constantly producing feedback, what we are. Because we love to know what we are and cling to that. Happy or miserable, it doesn't matter. But awareness, without any willpower or intention, throws light that there was an image. And if that's genuine awareness, and we'll talk about that in a little while, that image loses its power, it is diffused. It's like the plug pulled out of it. So then what is there to hurt? Somebody calls us no matter what. Says to us no matter what. This is something that we have to be investigating for ourselves, and we will have plenty of opportunity all day long. Because we're constantly getting hurt over what he said, he did, she, the whole thing. So there's a lot of training ground to look at what gets hurt. I don't think a retreat passes in which we talk about this with tremendous passion, emphasis. Because if it can be caught once, something very essential about our difficulty in living together is exposed, is clarified. And if the response does not come out, the defensive or aggressive or hurting response, if that is seen, one can see it come up, but one also sees what it is and what it is that it is defending. And in the awareness, if it is genuine awareness, there is an intelligence functioning that sees and understands. And with that, the response is, it's nonsensical. It doesn't happen. It's not that one has to count to 10 or swallow it or tense one's arms or pinch one's fingernails. These are devices which we can learn, but they don't come out of awareness and intelligence. They come out of willful intention not to get hurt. So, if we find that we're attentive, and yet we get angry, the anger continues. Why? We ask. I think what needs to be done is to question whether we are really attentive. Attention is easily battered around. Somebody told me that as often as you say attention, it can become a real groove into which one falls. Voicing it, verbalizing it, thinking about it, but not attending. I agree. So what is attention, awareness? It's so difficult to tell the difference, because if one is just partially attentive or thinks one is attentive, doesn't realize that this is not complete attention. One doesn't realize that. I've often used this example. You may have heard it before, but it's such a good one. Maybe sometime a new one will be thrown up by this memory. Of a person in a retreat, standing in a narrow aisle, putting a jacket on. And since we talk a lot, we used to talk a lot more about paying careful attention, maybe while eating or while putting on a piece of clothing, you could see the person was standing pretty much in front of me. With what care he put the jacket on. There was sensitive, everything was there. The way the arm slipped slowly through the sleeve. I'm becoming theatrical. The feeding each button through each buttonhole. It was a bijou of attention. It happened that a woman was trying to get through the aisle, a narrow aisle. But the one who was attentively putting on the jacket did not notice her. So she stood there patiently, eyes down, for a while. But he didn't notice her. So she started climbing over cushions and mats to get to her seat. He never noticed it. So in one small sense, there was attention, awareness, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm wondering, I never talked to the person. I was wondering, and I'm wondering now, whether there was not an image there too of being very attentive. And the attachment to this image of being an attentive meditator, or whatever one thinks of oneself as being. Because that is a almost guarantee for blocking the vision. The way we think of ourselves takes up the whole space. It's a small space, but it takes up the whole. Closing a door quietly, I think it has happened to all of us. And becoming so involved in it and thinking how attentive or quietly one is closing the door, that the next movement one does makes a racket. Because it's not really an open awareness in which there is no subject doing it, no image being fed, and the image feeding the organism with good feelings. When that takes place, it's not attention. It's something partial, concentrating on a small arena, very small. And in the middle, the self-image. This is all testable. Maybe I'm talking old hat. Many of us know this, understand it, and get trapped in it. So what is awareness that is not divided, has no central agent in it, no image in it, no me. Neither the security of me nor the insecurity of the me is in that attention. It's just the openness. One person in a recent letter which we published in the last newsletter was writing about the antennae being spread wide. Perceiving, but not the image of the perceiver. Attending, but not the image of the attender, because that makes the whole thing again. Small stage. So it is awareness, and awareness in which there is no one who is aware that he or she is aware. It's awareness. In which, as we said earlier, a person approaching, when there is the perception of that person being in frustration or anger, misery, aggressive, bursting at the seams, one can see that. If this attention is there, there can be no anger or fear, because that whole vast consciousness, conditioned consciousness, as we're used to it, is an abeyance. We use the analogy of the plug being pulled out of it, but nobody pulling the plug. When the when the state of awareness, I'm calling it a state, is not the best word. When there's this awareness, then the other is not functioning. Which doesn't mean that one forgets where the kitchen is or the bathroom is. Or thinking about what needs to be done when the fire bell rings. It's an amazing phenomenon of the brain. That's what it's developed for, to safeguard the survival of the organism, to function, to safeguard survival. What we human beings have burdened our brain with is to safeguard the survival of our image complex. Our self as a bundle of images and memories and past experiences that the brain is now safeguarding too with considerable conflict and difficulty and problems, one problem after another. And that mechanism of safeguarding the self-structure, that is not functional in awareness, because it does not serve surviving of the organism. On the contrary, when that doesn't function, our survival is much better ensured, because we will not shoot at each other because of images, hate each other because of ideas of what you are, a communist or a Jew or a Muslim. And I am this and that, different and better, black and white. Coming back to our initial question, why haven't I changed? Or it's so difficult to change, or why does anger come back? It comes back when there's no attention. It's simple, isn't it? It's verifiable. The moment I become involved in my problem, myself, my image, my rights, the way I should be treated, so forth, then all the emotions are connected. That's one conditioned consciousness which we all share. We're all interconnected in that. One instant of attention without image, and it's disconnected. Partial attention of the kind we talked about before does not disconnect the image. There's the image of me being attentive, and therefore I'm not aware of what else goes on around me, and I'm subject to hurt when somebody criticizes my lack of attention. I was so attentive, after all. So when one wonders, why does this stuff come back? Well, we can just watch why it comes back and when it comes back. It's self-explanatory. I was caught up in something, me, in the middle. And therefore anger or jealousy, rivalry. The next question is, but how do I get this other awareness? That seems to be the much more desirable state to be in. We may say that, but where are we coming from when we say that? I want that other awareness. Who is saying it? Why? What's the motive? Is that again the I self complex wanting a better state of being, imagining it, to end its troubles? Have a happier life, maybe better relationship. In this, there is conditions put on, isn't there? I want this because it does this and this and this for me. But this awareness does not respond to this. It may shed light on it, but it can't be brought about by any tour de force, any wishing or desiring or working hard to get it. It comes on its own. All of us know that. When suddenly one wakes up from a dream and realizes one has been dreaming, and there is the tweet, 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 and the sounds and the wind, and the heart beating and the breathing, it's all there, alive. How did that happen? I haven't talked to one person yet who said, I brought that about. I willed that. It's usually an amazement. But rather remaining with this amazement. Usually the conditioning takes over immediately and says, why was I dreaming before? I wish I had. I hope this will last. How can I keep it? Maintain it? And that's the end of it. Do you see that? That's clear, isn't it? We want to do. We are doers by conditioning. It seems so hard just to passively listen, passively look and feel and be aware without any choice, without any preference, without, just passively aware. And this passively does not mean no energy. It means no immediately interfering, correcting, holding, pushing away, doing, or running away. The me can't do it because the me is all of those reactions. That's what the me is. And yet, it can happen, it can take place. In a human being that is seriously concerned, deeply, seriously concerned with the way we live and have lived for thousands and thousands of years, and not changed. see, the newness, the change is not modifying one's character or personality. But the openness. Of seeing, listening, without doing. Which does not mean a state of paralysis, inactivity, because out of this seeing comes right action, because it's intelligent. The seeing already is right action. Action which does not divide. We will end here for today.